Hi there. Welcome to the latest episode of the George Macy Imagery video series. I think we're on episode 8. Hard to believe I've done this 8 times now, and we're going to be doing something a little different today. We haven't had a Heritage Press specific video since the very first one, where I talked about the Aeneid. But today we're going to talk about a couple of the very first series of the Heritage Press. And I've got 2 of the 6 here. Now you might be wondering what I mean by 2, because there's clearly 3 books here. Well, there's 2 copies of one of the books. And then there is a second book that I only have 1 copy of. And I'm going to explain that as we go. But you'll also see that I actually have the announcement for the Heritage Press from 1935, when they got started. And what that little booklet has inside of it is a lovely breakdown of the 6 volumes and explains why they're doing this. So we're going to go through that before we actually get into the books here. So as you can see, the Heritage Press announces a first series of 6 books illustrated by some of the world's foremost book artists, well printed and interesting types on permanent papers, bound in well-nigh imperishable materials which every discerning person will want to present as gifts to his or her loved ones and him or herself. And this was sent out sometime in November of 1935. So this little pamphlet was sent to me by a devotee. I did try to spotlight it on the blog earlier, but I just didn't have the best means of getting photos of it. So I kind of figured what I would do for fun is I would share it with you via this video, and kind of just go through what it's all about. So this lab report on the left side, this is from a chemist named Jesse Miner, who evaluated the paper within these first 6 books against standards set up by the Bureau of Standards in terms of various factors like alpha content, copper number, pH value, acidity number, and rosin content. So the Heritage Press exceeds Class 2 in a lot of ways. On the basis of those above classifications, there should be an expected from a paper which ranks so high in Class 2 under normal aging conditions a lifespan of at least several centuries, which was the point of the Heritage Press, was to create iconic editions of classic literature that you could pass down through generations. And while the Lim Editions Club also had, I think, a similar goal, it had a limitation, as in only 1,500 people would receive those. With the Heritage Press, the intention was to basically mass market these nicer books, but have them be ones that could continue to be a part of the family for years to come. So I'm going to basically just read the essay here, the reason for these books, and then we'll jump into the actual 6 books of the first series. So it starts, you will find many books in America's bookstores. Many of these are new, fresh, not only from the presses, but also from the pens of living authors. Many are the ever-young classics of literature, refurbished and reprinted in new editions. But few of these books, indeed, are well-made, printed upon papers of permanence, so that you can consider their purchase a sound investment, knowing that they will still be on your shelves in readable condition as the years unfortunately roll by. And few of them, indeed, possess such an elegance of appearance as you can proudly present them as gifts. No. When young Roderick has graduated from school, and a lovely book suggests itself as an appropriate gift to make him, it is difficult to find a lovely book in America's bookstores. when Cousin Hetty marries that young man she's been going with. One of the fine romantic classics would be nice to send her if you could find it in an edition of which you would not be ashamed. When Aunt Hezekiah chooses to celebrate yet another birthday, you would think almost automatically of presenting her with a volume of verses or something French and naughty. If you could get the volume in such a handsome edition that you wouldn't worry after giving it to her about being cut off without a cent. Books are the best of gifts at commencement and during the happy wedding hour and at Christmastide in celebration of someone's anniversary, but books which are gifts should be well-selected texts, surpassingly elegant in appearance, well made with an eye to permanence. Such books, like a good man, are hard to find. And that is why the Heritage Press now announces the publication of a list of just such books. The selected classics of the world's literatures, elegantly presented in beautiful editions. All of the books are illustrated, usually with pictures in full color, and by the foremost book illustrators in the world. All of the books are printed on especially made papers, chemically tested to assure a permanence of several centuries. All of the books are printed in lovely and interesting types at America's leading book printing shops. All of the books are bound in well-nigh imperishable materials. All of the books are appropriate as gifts, the kind of books you have to give to Cousin Hetty and Aunt Hezekiah and young Roderick, and they are also the kind of books you will find yourself wanting to own yourself, if you take pride in your own shelves of books. Yet the fixed retail price for these books will only be $5. Only $5 indeed. You will find books in the bookshops for 50 cents or $2 or 75 cents. But these are books, these are investments. These books published by the Heritage Press represent a value which has never been obtained in the bookshops before. A fine rag of paper, tested to last for centuries, in a book for only $5. Illustrations by one of the world's leading artists in a book for only $5. Careful type composition, superior printing, leather bindings in a book for only $5. Those Philistines who are satisfied with badly made books will not be interested in the Heritage books at any cost. Those discerning persons who recognize a well-made and lovely book when they see one will find the Heritage books to be amazing, honest amazing bargains. The first list of 6 titles is described in the succeeding pages of this circular. You are invited to go over it carefully. A subscription form is included after the descriptions. You are invited to consider how badly you want to have these books yourself. You are invited to go over your list of sisters and cousins and aunts and consider how popular a person you will be if you present these books to them. You are then invited to fill out and send in the subscription form. So, pretty good sales pitch. Pretty good sales pitch. So what were the 6 books? The Personal History of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which was illustrated by John Austen. The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's, illustrated and illuminated with pure gold by Valenti Angelo. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, illustrated by W.A. de Wiggins. The Tragedy of Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, illustrated by Sylvain Sauvage. A Shropshire Lad by A.E. Houseman, illustrated by Edward A. Wilson. And Manon Lescaut by the Abbe Provost, illustrated by Pierre Broussaud. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about 2 of those 6 today. And as I said at the very beginning of this video, I actually have the regular run-of-the-mill edition of the Song of Songs, as well as the first edition. I also have the first edition of Manon Lescaut. So we're going to talk about those 2 books. I will actually read some of the description in the announcement for these books. But this series will continue as I acquire the other 4, and my hope is to get the first editions. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll do it in order. So Manon Lescaut can sit aside, and we're going to look at the 2 editions of the Song of Songs. And I think you can probably see right off the get-go the difference in quality between the first edition and the regular edition. Now, I do have a sandglass, but it came with this one, so I'm not 100% sure if it's actually accurate to this. So I'm going to skip it, and we will focus on what it says within the announcement, and then I can touch on the production details. The loveliest of all arrangements of printed words in the English language are in the King James Version of the Holy Bible, and the loveliest section of the Holy Bible is the Song of Songs. Now, the Bible is often called the Golden Book, and the Song of Songs is full of golden words, and therefore the Heritage Edition is illuminated with pure gold. And it is hoped that you are properly impressed. Illumination of books was the foremost art of the Middle Ages. It is little practiced today. When it is practiced, a book illuminated with gold is issued at what must be dubbed a very fancy price indeed. It is therefore possible to assert that never in book history has an illuminated book been issued at the retail price of $5. This edition is a unique achievement, and it becomes a superb gift for you to make to anyone who appreciates sheer beauty yourself, since you do. Valente Angelo is probably the only artist in America practicing this monkish art. He is at the same time one of the world's foremost illustrators of books. He has created an edition of the Song of Songs which is full of an excruciating beauty. All of the pages are printed in 4 colors. A highly floriated design in yellow and blue and red surrounds a type page printed in a large size of lutea in black. There are 8 chapters in the Song of Songs. Each chapter is led off with a large decorative initial, and each of these initials is illuminated with pure gold. Size of the page is 6.5 to 10 inches, and the paper is a soft imported Japanese rag stock. The binding is of full leather for only $5. Yes, they say that at the end of all of these. Even in the sandglass, it talks about $5. They were really proud of the prices. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. So Angelo is the designer. And if you've looked at my posts on the Kashida and Vatek, this will not surprise you. This basically is in the same mold, just a lot bigger than those books. It's also got a cousin volume on the Heritage Press side with Salome by Oscar Wilde, which I will probably cover when I start doing some Heritage Press exclusive videos down the road, because that is also a beautiful book. Honestly, the sandglass repeats quite a bit of information from the announcement. There is a little bit more detail on where the font comes from, which lutea is from Jan van Krimpen, which is not surprising given the association between Van Krimpen and George Macy. Each book was individually illuminated, so that means that each one is different in its own way because they will not be exact, and we can compare that with these 2 editions here. And as I said, this is for the normal edition here, the sandglass. So it doesn't talk about the leather binding that was used for the first edition. So what do I mean by first edition? So there's a lot to this video already. I feel like I've just thrown a whole bunch of information at you, but that's what's really cool about the first series of Heritage Press books, is that Macy issued higher quality versions of the initial 6 books and offered them to the Limited Editions Club membership. So 1,500 copies were made of these first edition versions, and they're special from the regular one. And I can't quite show you how Manon Lescaut is different, but I can tell you about it because I did evaluate the books when I picked up Manon Lescaut several years ago. So I can tell you what is different. So let's dive in. So as you can see, It's got a lovely, lovely cover. Unfortunately, my first edition is a little bit beat up, and a bookseller made the incredibly unwise decision to slap a sticker on it. Never good. But the design, in terms of what's on the front, is effectively the same. And it's on both sides. So let's go ahead and open this up. And one thing that I can tell you right now, and it might be a little bit hard for the camera to pick up, but how the pages are printed are different. So you can see on the left side from the first edition that it is a red, and in the regular edition it's orange. That might not be as clear for you as it is for me, but I wanted to let you know. Both books do have a double folded paper like this, but the first edition is a thinner paper. And it feels nicer on the hands. So you can see already, because the first edition's a thinner paper, it has a little bit more bleed through. You're not seeing any bleed here, but you might be seeing some here onto the next page. That's just because of the paper. The first edition is using a higher quality paper, but it's also thinner. The nice thing is that both are printed very similarly, other than the ink choice. But I do have to say the first edition looks nicer with the red versus the regular edition in orange. It stands out more, and the black ink in the blues is of a higher quality. It's thicker here. We can also see a little bit of that differentiation in the illumination here. I can see like a little indentation on the one on this page in the middle, and not here. Okay, so here is the first page. And again, these are not as thick. These are not as thick as this side. So there is some of that difference. And you can, like here, Angela bled a little bit off, but not here. So that's kind of the cool thing about these books, is that if you get one of the early editions, each one is just a tad different. But these are beautiful. Unfortunately, this particular one has a tear here. These are absolutely beautiful books. I love this motif that Angelo did, where yellow paper with just beautiful decorations around the words, and then just having like his drawings inside in a different color, as well as the illuminated initials and other details. They're just gorgeous. Now, there's one more thing about the first editions beyond an increase in the qualities, and that is a tipped in page. So this can be hard to spot with the Song of Songs, because Angelo's signature is really hard to find because it's right there. And I actually saw a first edition of Song of Songs beforehand in a red leather, but I didn't see a signature because my experience with Manon Lescaut, it's in a different place. So that's partially why I want to do these videos on the first editions of the first series, is because I want people to be able to figure out which ones are which, because it might be a little bit hard. To my understanding, there's also red leather editions that might have been in the first series that aren't signed. So that's why I want to point this out. So there's a tipped in page that's exclusive to the first edition. Angelo's signature's down there, and then it goes to the colophon. And there's nothing on the back, which is unusual because every other page is double-sided. So that is how you can tell if you found a first edition of the Song of Songs. I'm very pleased to have both of these, honestly. I bought this one from Book Buyers in Monterey, if my memory is correct. And then this one was very kindly sent to me by a devotee, so I could document it on the blog. Someone else had also supplied photos for the original post. So one of the things I need to do is actually take photos of this and update that post. Sometimes it can be really easy to just focus on doing new posts instead of updating old ones. So that is the Song of Songs, which is a lovely edition. The Limited Editions Club had intentions of doing their own Song of Songs as part of the Book Lovers Tour of the World. But unfortunately, World War II really messed up those plans, and the Song of Songs was never issued by the Limited Editions Club. Alright, let's move on to our second volume in this video, which is the 6th volume in the initial first series, Manon Lescaut. I'll go ahead and read what the announcement has to say. The Heritage Edition of Manon is obviously intended to be a fine gift to make the persons who delight in French romance, for Manon is one of the most famous of all the classics of 18th century French romance. Manon herself, that delectable feminine morsel who loved love only when properly surrounded by luxury, has been immortalized in grand opera, and her amorous adventures are known, therefore, even to those people who do not often read books. Pierre Broussard is that Parisian artist whose books are never in stock. His pictures are so French that the French adore them. He has illustrated dozens of books, all of them sellouts, but he tells us that he has all his life wanted to illustrate Manon, and his pictures indicate that he made them with fire in his eye and love in his heart. There are 24 pictures to begin the various chapters, and 8 in delightful full color. The book is largish, the book page being 7 by 10 inches. The paper is the same as that used in Romeo and Juliet, a white and tough and permanent sheet, and the binding is of half leather, the sides covered with a handsome French silk, for only $5. So in terms of design, let's see here. T.M. Cleland was the designer for this book. The type uses Fournier, named after Pierre Fournier, and A. Kolish handled the printing duties. And the paper is from Collins Manufacturing Company, if this end glass represents this edition, which I'm pretty sure it does not. It's hard to say. So this is the first edition of Manon Lescaut, and I've seen later editions, and that's where the sand glass is pulled from, as well as my slipcase. Apparently when it was originally issued, it was issued in a purple slipcase, but it also says that the top of each page is stained purplish, and mine is not, but this is a first edition, so don't ask me. I just go along with what's being said. So, I cannot guarantee that all Manon Lescauts look like this on the cover, but it does have a nicer binding in pigskin than in the original or the normal version. And this is a delightful marbled paper. It's just a gorgeous, one of my favorite papers that is used for any book that Macy was involved with. I got this at Old Capitol Books in Monterey, and I'm going to show you how you can tell it's the first edition. It's right on the title page. This illustration on the left is tipped in. It is a higher quality than any of the other illustrations because it's pretty much an original watercolor by Broussard. It's beautiful. The texture is amazing. I absolutely love this illustration. It's one of my favorites of his, and I love the shading. It's so well done. You can see that this is a collaborative between the Heritage Press and the Nonsuch Press. So the Nonsuch Press also released this book, and it's just gorgeous. Let me show you a few of the illustrations, if I can find. So there is what the watercolors printed in the book look like, and you can tell that it's different. I'll do a quick little flip back. Here's the cover page. Here's the later, and here's the one printed in the book. I really like this book a lot. This was the first one of the first series of Heritage Press books I got, and I don't think the people who I bought it from knew what they had. I think it was priced normally, and there was 2 or 3 other copies of Manon Lescaut there, and minus the front page, minus this illustration, and they look nice, but they don't have the same paper either. They may have had the purple on the top, but you can see that this one's taken a little bit, what I would suspect is possibly water damage down here. Not from me, but it's been like that, and it hasn't gotten any worse in my ownership of it. And I believe there's a little colophon in the back with some... Oh, not with this one. There was no colophon in the back like there was with Song of Songs. So that is Manon Lescaut. So we have 4 more of these to talk about in the future. I don't have them, but we'll get to them. And I just am tickled that I have the ones that I do have here. And that this particular video is also like hugely possible thanks to the contributions of incredibly kind devotees who have taken it upon themselves to send me books and information gratis. I can't even begin to thank you all who have done this. It just means the world to me that you value what I'm doing to the point that you give me your own books and pamphlets and information so freely and so generously. So this episode goes out to all of you who have helped in your way to help this blog continue going and flourish. I think that we're at a really lovely point right now in the blog's history with covering all of these really neat LECs and now doing these videos where I can go back to stuff I've already covered and kind of elaborate more on these as I get more information and materials and books. So I'm just delighted to be able to share this with you today, and when I get 2 more of these in the first edition format, I will return to this topic. We've got the announcement, so it won't be difficult. I don't know when that will be. Those are probably, once I get the last in the first series for the LEC, I think I actually want to try to get a hold of the last 4 of the first series of the Heritage Press as well. Just to have origins of both clubs would be really rad. So thank you so much for joining me today on this little adventure. I hope that you found it illuminating, much like the Song of Songs. And we will see you next month for a whole new topic. Take care.